Welcome to How to 6X Your Sales in 2024. My name is Joe Beck, founder of The Sales Activist, and I am super excited to be here with you covering this topic today. So before we jump into everything, I thought I'd just take a quick moment and just introduce myself, let you know a little bit more about what qualifies me to be sitting here talking to you about this. So I am a 35-year sales and business development veteran. Across my career, I have worked with Fortune 50 companies all the way down to solopreneurs. I've personally generated over $500 million in sales transactions and revenue for companies that I've worked with and for. And I've had the great honor and pleasure to coach, train, or mentor over 3,500 sales professionals and entrepreneurs. And I am super excited to talk to you today about how to generate 6 times your sales results in 2024 versus 2023. And before we jump into the content today, I want to let you know if there's ever anything I can do to help you sales-wise, you can reach out to me directly at my digital assistant by texting the word sales to the number 409-509-7355. That's texting sales to 409-509-7355 to connect with me and get on my calendar. So I like to start these events with covering just a couple of real quick topics that are universally impacting people. And the first is this: if you're an entrepreneur, if you're out there selling and you're currently struggling with your sales results, let me stop right there and say to you, you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. The fact is, people struggle with their sales results at a lot of different times for a lot of different reasons. The most important thing is, number one, that you don't give up. Number two, that you continue to look for ways to perfect your craft and improve what it is that you're doing. See, the fact is this: sales skills are learned. They're no different than any other skill that you could ever learn for yourself. Sales skills are very much the same way. And now is a great opportunity to dispel one of the rumors that people share about sales very often, and it's this. Some people believe that there is actually something as a born salesperson, somebody who's born to be a salesperson. They have those natural skills. And the fact is, there couldn't be anything further from the truth. There is no such thing as a born salesperson. Now, there might be some people who are a little bit more comfortable to communicate and sell. Maybe they're a little bit more outgoing. Maybe they have a more outgoing personality, better communication skills. They may seem like they're better suited to be a salesperson, but there's no such thing as a born salesperson. Sales skills are learned, which means anybody, no matter who you are, no matter what your background is, no matter what your educational level is, no matter where you come from money or not from money, you can learn how to sell. And it's one of the things that attracted me to sales as a career path. In fact, I don't have a great educational background. I barely eked out an associate's degree in business. But what I learned as it relates to professional selling was I could develop and perfect my craft. I could educate myself. I could take courses, classes. I could take advantage of every opportunity out there to get better at what I did. And that's exactly what I've done across my career. Now, for today's topic, how to 6X your sales results in 2024. Let's start with the basics. Let's throw out the stuff that's going to be most impactful for everybody. Now, here we are. It is December 21st, 2023, heading into a brand new year. And I know there's a lot of people that are watching this, a lot of people that will watch this recording, that right now, a little over a week away from starting a brand new year, you don't have a clear, defined plan for your sales success. Now, you don't have to tell me, you don't have to share it with me, but I promise you there are a lot of people that are listening to this that don't have a plan. They may think they have a plan. They may, have a plan of things that may have worked in the past, but they don't have a clear, defined plan for their sales success. Now, why is that important? Well, if you're going to go after a very aggressive goal like 6Xing your sales results in a calendar year, you need to have a plan. And that plan needs to be clear, defined, well thought through, and you need to make sure that you execute and start on that plan right from the beginning of the year. You need to jump into it fully prepared and ready to execute. Now, why is that an important first step? Well, because for a lot of people, sales and sales results, more particularly, are an afterthought. They may be an expert at what it is that they do. Some of you listening to this today may be the ultimate expert in your field, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're an expert at selling yourself or selling your product, your service, or your offering. So to be successful in selling, especially if you're going to have an aggressive plan, you need to have a very, very specific, defined plan to help you get there. So let's talk about that plan. Let's break this down a little bit so we identify the things that you need to do so you can be successful. If you're going to 6x your sales results in 2024, you better have a plan. So let's start with number one on the list. What specifically, as far as activities, will you do for yourself? That's the first thing you need to identify in your plan. The second part of the plan is what will others do? Now, the first is obviously pretty straightforward. What activities are you going to focus on? But the second requires a little bit of explanation. So what will others do towards your success? Now, why is this important? Because I will tell you, if you're going to go out there and crush your sales goals, if you're going to absolutely destroy your sales objectives and 6x your sales results in a calendar year, you need to get help. You need to get help from other people, other organizations, other resources that might help you move things along. It doesn't mean that you can't do the lion's share of the work yourself, but you better engage other people to get them working on your behalf. Now, what does that look like? Well, that might be other resources, other strategic alliances, partnerships, referral agreements. Other people need to be involved in the process. There's one thing that elite sales professionals know, and they know this to their core: they don't have to do it themselves. If you're smart enough to develop relationships, and those relationships can be smaller relationships or they could be significant corporate relationships. If you can get other people helping you to move things along, it will always make the effort and the process easier on you. So first is, what will you be doing specifically? What will others be doing? Now, the third question, and this is one of the things that's important going into your plan, and it doesn't matter specifically how you design your plan, but it needs to be defined. What can you automate in your business? What activities can you automate to save you time and energy and focus? See, the reality is we live in an amazing day and age. You can get automations, AI, all these amazing tools and resources to help you move your business forward. But many people underutilize them. They don't utilize them to their fullest potential. And as a result, they spend a lot of time on low value activities. So if you want to 6x your sales results, figure out what you can automate in your business to move things forward. Set it and forget it and move on so you can focus on higher value activities for yourself and your business. Now, let's dig into some of these specific things by way of activities. Let's talk a little bit about what's important in this plan. To be able to create the most effective plan, the plan that's going to get you the results that you're looking for, one that's going to 6x your results, you have to start with this process. You start with the end in mind. You start with looking at where you are right now. Look at where you're going to finish up 2023 as far as your sales results. Look at where you need to go, 6xing that sales result, and figure out how you reverse engineer to the smallest degree what your specific activities need to be. Now, what do I mean when I say that? That means you need to look over everything, look over your ratios, look over your averages, and figure out to get to a sale, to get to a particular sale, you need to identify how much activity needs to go in on your part to make that sale happen. And that could be how many calls you make, how many emails you send, how many ads you post, how much activity on social media do you have, how many personal conversations do you have, how many Zoom calls do you have, how many individual one-on-one appointments do you have, how many group calls do you have, how many proposals do you generate, how many follow-ups do you do on your proposals, how many counter proposals do you process, how many contracts do you sign? You see where I'm going with this? You need to think about every individual step in the process and reverse engineer to get to the desired result. Now, that process needs to be handled in a way that can break down specifically what your activity needs to be, accounting for fallout, accounting for things not working the way that you think they may work. And we're going to talk about that in a couple more minutes. So as we jump into the plan, and we're gonna fill in the elements of this plan as we go along. The first thing that needs to be included in your plan, and this is something that is so important for your success, especially in today's age, you need to design and devise how you're going to get people's attention. How you are going to get people's attention. See, in today's world, you must be seen and you must get people's attention. People aren't just going to find you. You need to do something that gets their attention. Now, that may be something that you market towards. It may be something that you do personally. It may be something that you engage other people to do, but you first must be seen and get people's attention. See, the reality is, in today's world, it's a noisy, crowded world. There's a lot of background noise. There's a lot of content out there. There's a lot of people out there. To stand out and be seen, you must get people's attention. But assuming you do that, and that's a big assumption, but assuming you do that, what do you need to do to be successful? What are the elements of your success? And I like to talk about these consistently whenever I share information with people, because these three elements, whether you realize it or not, impact your success in every area of your life. And they impact your success in sales just as much. So let's break down what these three critical elements are, because if you're serious about wanting to 6x your sales results, if you're really serious about making it happen, then you need to design a plan that includes these three elements. And these elements need to make sure that they're wired and set up the right way. So number one, at the top of the list, if you're going to 6x your sales results, you need to have the right sales success mindset. Now, what does that mean? Well, the right sales success mindset is a mindset that's geared the right way. It's focused on creating massive value and impact for your clients, for your prospects. It's a servant leader mentality. It's helping them create massive value. You all have probably heard the concept, the more people that you help find what they're looking for, the easier it is for you to find what you're looking for. Well, that's the exact sales success mindset that you need to have. Be of service to people. Help them get what they're looking for. That's the first point. The second point is you need to leverage your sales success network. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, that's what I referred to a couple of minutes ago. You need to leverage other people. It's amazing to me that people think that they have to go out and do everything themselves in today's day and age. You can leverage your right sales success network. Now, what does that look like? Well, that could be your personal contacts. It could be your professional contacts, current clients, former clients. It could be people in other businesses and industries that align themselves with you. Maybe there are aligned companies that offer comprehensive complementary products or services to what you offer, and you can work with them in support of your clients. Open your mind to the idea of getting more people involved in your success. Get more people involved in your success, because one of the things you'll learn over time, if you really want to achieve exponential growth in selling, you need to get more people involved. The more people you get involved, the more excitement and success that's created, the easier it becomes to build true momentum. But you need to involve other people, and that could be in the form of referral agreements, joint ventures, partnerships, strategic alliances, just complementary products or services. Come up with ways of getting other people involved in your success, and you'll find that it becomes easier for you to generate sales. And finally, the third element of your success, which is so critical, is you need to have the right sales success systems. Now, what does that mean? That means you need to systematize everything that you do, from how you approach contacting people, all the way up through how you engage them, communicate with them, follow up with them, all the way through the delivery of your process, your service, your product. You need to have the right systems in place. Now, I'm not saying that your systems have to be super complicated. In today's day and age, you can set up some pretty comprehensive systems. You could do everything digitally. You can create landing pages, squeeze pages, funnels. You could do all this amazing thing from a technology standpoint, and that can work. And that could be your system or part of your system. But your system could be something as simple as, I make X number of calls per day, or I send out X number of messages per day, or I attend X number of networking events per week. whatever it might be, they all could be component pieces of your system. What I'm saying is you need to leverage it. You need to leverage it to your best potential and ability to achieve the success that you're looking for. If you want to 6x your sales results, then you better dial in your systems. Now, along the way, and we're going to cover some of these things some more here in a couple of minutes, along the way, there's two elements of your success that you need to highlight. And you need to highlight two things in selling. First is you need to highlight the science. You need to know and understand the science of your success. Now, what does that look like? Well, that's where you understand your numbers. That's where you understand your ratios. That's where you know your numbers inside and out. Now, let's talk about what that looks like. I mentioned it a little bit before. It involves things like knowing your average client size or deal size. It involves identifying exactly how many prospects that you'll need to engage to create a satisfactory result. How many of those prospects will you need to convert? How many of them will you need to see, meet with, propose to actually convert? And you need to know and understand your ratios so you can fully determine what you need to do from a number standpoint to be successful. So if you don't know what those ratios look like for you today, I want to give you something that will make things a lot easier for you. I'm going to give you what a really solid standard ratio may look like. And that ratio may be something like 10-3-1. That ratio may be something like for every 10 prospects that you engage, 3 of them will turn into a legitimate, viable prospect that you may sell. That process could then narrow down to one individual specific client. So 10-3-1, 10 suspects, possible clients, to 3 prospects who might be legitimate prospects for your service, all the way down to 1 client, 10-3-1. Now, some people who don't have a plan and who've never worked with or really developed much into their business don't even really understand what their own personal ratios are. So this 10-3-1 might be new for you and something you may not have ever experienced before. But I will tell you that without question, you need to understand your ratios, because as you're operating your business, especially if you're trying to generate 6x your sales results, you need to constantly monitor your sales results, your ratios. Why is that so important? Well, because as you're monitoring things, if you're serious about wanting to attain a level of 6x your sales results in a calendar year, you need to constantly be making adjustments. You need to constantly be looking at your ratios and figuring out what you need to do more of, what you need to do less of, where you need to improve. And I'll just give you an analogy. It's kind of like if you follow like NASCAR or IndyCar racing, you're running around the track, you're driving as fast as you can, you're dealing with competition, you're weaving in and out, you're dealing with the day-to-day realities of what it is that you do. And maybe you're winning, maybe you're not winning, you're in the race, but the way you go to the pit is you're constantly going into the pits to make adjustments. Maybe you're adding fuel, maybe they're making adjustments on your individual car. Maybe they're elevating the car, maybe they're putting airs in the tires, maybe they're taking air out of the tires, or maybe they're removing the tires completely and replacing them. But there's constant adjustments going on to get you better performance, to get you better results, to eke out a little bit more time on the track to help you gain on the competition. Well, this is the same type effort. You're going to make adjustments to your ratios. You're going to constantly make adjustments. Now, here's a really critical tip. You want to make these adjustments as often as you can. Now, in the very least, at least once a month, look over all your ratios and make the necessary adjustments to close the gap. If you go into January and January you end up, 15%, off of your sales result goal, then you need to make sure that you make adjustments into your overall business, change your ratios, the numbers you have to generate to make up that shortfall. See, too many times people fail to reach their objectives because they set a goal. People don't have a problem setting goals. What they have a problem with is how to adjust when things go wrong. And this is the same in sales. So what happens is people will set a goal and they'll go a month or two in, they don't make any adjustments, and they keep looking at the goal and realizing that it's getting harder and harder to look at it as all possible. It's something that they're just never going to attain. Now, how do you fix that problem? Well, you fix that problem by making constant adjustments, making little tweaks, and adjusting your ratios and your necessary numbers at least on a monthly basis. See, too many times people don't do that. They get 3 or 4 months into the year and they are so far behind their goal that they give up. Whether they admit it or not, they give up. They give up on their annual goal. And I know this because over my career, especially in my corporate days, I've led many, many sales teams with hundreds of individual sales producers. And I could almost always tell in the middle of the year when that person had already given up on their goal. They looked at their number at the end of the year and they already knew they weren't going to be able to make it happen. And even though we tried to get them to make adjustments, they didn't make the necessary adjustments that they needed to make. And you know what would happen? Somewhere along the way, around that midpoint of the year, they start making not adjustments, they start making concessions. They start saying, well, I don't necessarily need to 6x my sales goal. I could 4x my sales goal. And the fact is, as soon as you start making those concessions, it becomes easier to make the next one. 2 months later, you start saying, I don't need to necessarily 4x my sales goal. I could 2x my sales goal. And by the time you get to the fourth quarter, you're hoping, and I mean hoping, that you will at least equal the sales results that you did in the previous month. Because you know what? You didn't make the adjustments you needed to make. Now, I know I spent a lot of time on that particular topic, but it's a hot button for me, and it is for everybody that achieves massive sales success. The winners in generating massive sales growth figure out how to make adjustments, how to make tweaks in what they're doing, and get back on track as quick as they can. Sometimes that requires an objective third-party opinion. That's a lot of the type of work that I do at the Sales Activist. Sometimes it requires a coach. Sometimes it requires an accountability partner. But either way, you figure out what you need to do to make those adjustments. See, the fact is, when I look at all the businesses that I've worked with, and when I look at individual producers that I've worked with or trained or coached, I've identified 2 critical areas that people usually fail. And this is important as it relates to you 6xing your sales results. If you really want to 6x your sales results, you need to make sure you take care of the next 2 topics that I'm going to highlight. I recommend, if you're not taking notes, that you start taking them now, because you don't want to miss these next 2 sections. So the first area that is most likely and most often broken when people struggle with their sales results is the client acquisition system. How people go about acquiring clients. Now, you may have a really comprehensive client acquisition system. You may be running ads. You may be doing all kinds of marketing. You may be generating referrals. You may be doing that well. And I'm not saying it's broken, but a lot of people struggle with their client acquisition system. I can't tell you how many times that I talk to people and I say, so what do you think's broken? And the answer is, I'm not getting enough leads into my business. I'm not getting enough prospects into my business. And that might be true. They might be great at what they do. They may have no problem closing business, but they struggle with generating enough lead flow into their business. Their client acquisition system is broken. That's the first one. Now, your client acquisition system, if you want to 6x your sales results, it needs to be duplicatable and scalable. Now, what does that mean? That means that you need to be able to duplicate and replicate it as often as you want to or need to. And it needs to be scalable. Now, what does that mean? It needs to be something that you can grow and scale with ease. So I'll just give you a comparison. If your client acquisition system is you personally doing something and it requires a commitment of time and effort in a certain time period, whether it's a week, a month, a year, whatever it is, if your client acquisition system is geared towards that, that's very difficult to scale. Why? There's only one of you. There's only so many days in a month, weeks in a month, days in a week, hours in a day. There's a limit. It's not fully scalable. What could be scalable is if you take that effort and then you duplicate that with additional people, or you duplicate it with additional systems or automations or things that kind of replicate it and make it scalable. Where it's not scalable, though, is when you personally are trying to do all that activity. Now, I want to give everybody a little gift on a way of jump-starting your 2024 and certainly get you on the right track towards 6xing your sales results. One of the things that I like to do at the beginning of every year, I think it can play a major difference in people's success, is this: directly engage people and offer help. Now, when I mean directly, I don't mean email people. I mean either call them or, in the very least, text them and just reach out to them, let them know that you're thinking about them, and offer help. Is there anything that I can help you with today? Is there anything that you or your business needs? Now, I know that sounds like a simplification and it's not part of a defined process, but I'm going to tell you, if you jumpstart your activity by picking up your phone, looking at every single number in your address book that's business related, and you start texting people and saying, hey, just was thinking about you, wanted to know if there's anything that I can do to help you in the new year, I promise you'll create some activity. You may even create some momentum. You may create some people that ask you the same question. You'll probably get some people saying, what do you have going on in your business? What can I do to help support you? And that creates an opportunity to discuss your sales success network, getting other people involved and maybe referring business to you or helping you identify new opportunities. Now, why is that a great jump start? Because I'll tell you, the average person in their address book on their smartphone probably has anywhere from a couple of dozen to a couple of hundred contacts. I know my address book has well over 500 people in it. If I just start texting people, that simple thing, is there anything I can do to help you? I'm creating conversations. I'm creating engagements and interactions. In many ways, I'm creating opportunities. The average person will never just do that. Just sit down for a day and just text everybody that's a business contact in your address book. See what happens. See what opportunities it creates. Jumpstart things in your client acquisition system. I recommend text messaging only because the majority of people are going to reply. Even if it's just, hey, no thanks, everything's great here, or thanks for reaching out, don't need anything, they'll probably respond. Think about it. In today's world, we get bombarded with emails, most of which many times we don't even completely read. But text messaging, we usually check it out. We usually at least respond. You definitely want to think differently. If you're going to 6x your sales results in 2024, you need to make sure that you alternate the pattern by which you communicate with people. Don't be the same broken record that does all the same things the same way. Okay? Certain things, maybe. Certain things for consistency's sake and patterning make a lot of sense. But mix up the pattern. Create pattern interruptions in your business. Put yourself in a place where you are consistently and constantly alternating the pattern of how people hear from you. Why? Because that pattern interruption creates visibility. It creates them no longer discounting what they may be discounting based upon what you share. See, the average human being makes broad assumptions with content that they take in. They start reading an email and they think they know what it's about and they don't read the rest of it. They start looking at a social media post. They think it looks familiar to them and they discount it. They don't read the entire part. Think about this. How many times do people include in messages, read to the end, watch for the end? Why is that? Because they know that eyes don't stay focused on what it is that they're looking at. They discount things. They move on to the next topic. pattern interruption is a big deal. If you want to become visible and engage people, pattern interruption is key. Now, your client acquisition system could be simple or comprehensive. It could be just you. It could be a team. It could be just you making phone calls, emails, and social media posts, or it could be a whole army of people doing it with you and supporting you. All that I'm saying about your client acquisition system is it needs to be two things if you want to be able to 6x your sales results. It needs to be duplicatable and scalable. And write that down in your notes. Duplicatable and scalable. If it's not those two things, it's going to be hard for you to 6x your sales results. If it is those two things, it makes it much easier. Now, coming up, what's next? What is the other element that people need to have to be successful? Well, I'm going to break it down right now. And that is an easy to follow sales process. An easy to follow sales process. Now, why is that so important? Well, let's take a step back and let's think about what traditionally people think of a sales process. For a lot of reasons, a lot of people are intimidated by sales because they believe that they have to master this massive process that's very complicated and convoluted and makes it difficult for them to feel like themselves. If the prospect says this, then you say that. If they object with this, then you respond with this rebuttal objection. You constantly are thinking that you have to have this comprehensive, complicated process. And over 35 years, I've had the opportunity of training. It's coming up on almost 4,000 people. You know, between my corporate days as well as my time as an entrepreneur and dealing with teams as a coach and consultant, almost 4,000 people. And the one consistency that I've seen in people is the more complicated the sales process is, the more likely people will struggle with it. It's just true. Now, I've been in sales for 35 years. I've read hundreds of books on selling. I've taken dozens and dozens of different sales courses through trainers, coaches. I've educated myself along the way. And the one thing that I've noticed in the elite salespeople that are out there, they tend to perform better with simple sales processes than they do with complicated ones. And I know this from my corporate days, because what would happen is the corporate office would prepare these massive sales workbooks and sales processes. Sometimes they would be inches thick, and they would hand it out to everybody on the sales team. Here's the sales process. Here's the sales manual, right? And what would happen would be we would utilize 10 to 15% of what was in the manual. And what I learned over time in working with a lot of people, both in team settings and individual settings, was I figured out a way of simplifying things, dumbing it down, keeping it focused on what was most important, and more importantly, keeping it easy on the salesperson. Now, why is that so important towards 6xing your sales results? Because the more complicated your sales process is today, the more likely you will struggle with success. Now, why is that true? Because everything else in the world is already complicated. Your prospects are complicated. Their life is complicated. Their business is complicated. All the changes that can be going on in the middle of your sales process are complicated. If you're going to be successful in selling, if you're going to 6x your sales results, you need to simplify things. Dummy it down, make it straightforward, make it easy to follow so you can't get lost and distracted. Now, why? Because everybody else on the other side of the table, all the prospects, the clients, they're trying, not necessarily trying, but they are going to create complications for you. New decision makers in the middle of a process, changes in budgets, changes in timelines. Any of this sound familiar? Of course. Of course. Happens all the time. But successful salespeople know that they can't change and control all of those circumstances. They can't. All they can do is prepare to manage them as best as possible, which means for you to be successful, you can't become part of that complication. You have to simplify what it is that you're doing. And the easiest way to do that is to create a simple easy to follow sales process for yourself. Now, your sales process needs to be simple, easy to follow, and bulletproof. Bulletproof. Now, what does that look like? Well, across my career, I've had the opportunity of modifying various sales processes, and I created my own proprietary sales process. I call it the 5V method or the VOW method, just an acronym. You guys all remember in school the 5 vowels, right? A, E, I, O, and U. Well, I created a sales process using those vowels to keep it simple. And why is simple more effective? Because it's easy to get knocked off track in a complicated sales process. It's much harder to get knocked off track in an easy one. So the 5V method, what does that look like? Well, the 5 V's, the acronym AEIOU, A stands for attract. Attract. You need to attract people to you. Now, I'm not talking about marketing. I'm talking about once you are engaged with your prospect, you need to attract them to you. They need to like you. They need to be attracted to you in a sense that makes them comfortable to do business with you. Okay? That is important. You need to attract people to you. They need to look at you and say, this person has something that I really want, need, or desire. That attraction sets the table. If you aren't attractive to people, if they look at you and go, I don't know if I can work with that person. I don't know if I should listen to that person. I don't know if that person is the right expert for me or the right trusted advisor. If they have those questions about you, it becomes very, very difficult for you to be successful. So you need to focus your first effort in the sales process around A, attracting people to you. The second, the E in the sales process is engage. You need to engage people. Now, what does that look like? Well, that means you need to literally engage with people. There needs to be a strong engagement between you and your prospect. Nothing more frustrating than being around somebody who is selling and communicating one way. They're pitching nonstop. They don't allow for the prospect to ask questions. They don't allow for the prospect to be a part of the sales process. This old school mentality of sales will never get you to 6x your sales result. You have to engage people and genuinely care about their success. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to what they're sharing and truly engage them. Now, why is that so important? Because the things that you're going to do in that engagement process are going to set the table for the next things that you're going to do in what we call the I, or the impact phase. Now, what is the impact phase? The impact phase is where you are truly identifying what is most important to your prospect and what most impacts their life, their business, their success. Okay? See, the fact is, too many people in the world today sell on exclusively just value. And value in today's world has become a little bit commoditized. People can get value in a lot of different places. They can grab their smartphone and find 2,000 other people that may offer what you offer. They can get value a lot of different ways. See, value was a lot harder to convey years ago, before technology, before people were better educated and self-educated on the products they were interested in. See, the value came from the salesperson educating the prospect, and that still happens. But a lot of times the prospect has already self-educated themselves. In fact, as much as 65% of the education comes from the prospect doing it themselves before they ever get to the point of making a buying decision. So why is this relevant to your sales success, and why will this help you 6x your sales results? I will tell you right now that if you want to 6x your sales results, stop selling yourself short and selling with value and start selling with impact. Now, what's the difference between the two? Okay. Value is a logic-based determination. I pay X, I get X plus Y in return. It's a logical decision. It's based in logic. Impact is tied to emotion. And let me just give you an example. If somebody, as a result of working with you, is going to generate, let's say, $250,000 of ROI, and your product is $25,000, they're getting a 10x ROI. The cost of that product or service is being returned to them 10 times over. And as exciting as that is, that process and selling on that point is a logical decision. Wow, it's 10x the cost. Why wouldn't I do it? I'm getting 10x a return on this investment to purchase this product or service. That's a logical decision. And because it's a logical decision, it's not rooted in the most powerful frame that it could be. See, emotion is where people buy. Now, on the other side of that equation, let's say you're talking to that person, and instead of stopping and selling on value at $250,000, you start asking them questions and you say, Mr. Client, if I handed you a check right now for $250,000, what would you do with the money? And they say things like, oh, wow, I would definitely hire some more people from my marketing department. And, we would expand into this new market and probably add a couple of new product lines. And then you'll follow up with some more questions like, well, what would that do for your business? Well, it would easily help us double our sales output. And that increased marketing effort will probably definitely add to the bottom line. And, what would that do for you personally, Mr. Client? Well, that would not only help our company from a stability standpoint, it may allow us to continue to pay for our health insurance for all of our employees. It may allow me to be able to take a vacation for the first time in 5 years because business would be running so well. Would that be important to you, Mr. Client? Of course it would, emotionally. Now, see the difference between the two. The things that he's describing, the impact that it has on them, that's emotion. Those are things that mean something to them. Not that the $250,000 wouldn't mean something, but it's what the $250,000 could do that creates impact and emotion. See, elite sales professionals know, I know this, other elite professionals know that when you sell on emotion and you sell on impact, your likelihood for success is much, much greater. A lot of people don't know this, but studies have shown that as high as 70% of sales professionals that present to a prospect or a client, as high as 70% of them are not memorable. They're not memorable. People don't remember them. How can you expect to 6x your sales results if people don't even remember you? Now, why are you not memorable? Because people sell on value and they don't sell on impact. If you want to 6x your sales results, you need to make a conscious and deliberate effort to shift your focus towards selling on impact. It's part of the work that we do at The Sales Activist. I'd be happy to talk with you all about impact selling and how you turn around your sales results using impact at any given point. It's powerful leverage in the sales process. Not only does it help you increase your sales results, it better positions you as the trusted advisor to your clients. See, whether you knew it or not, your goal is not just to 6x your sales results. Your goal is pretty simple. You're in the same business that everybody else out there in the world is in, and that's to position yourself as a trusted advisor and resource to your clients. You're competing with everybody else in the world. They're trying to do the same thing. Why should you work with me? Why should you work with my company? Why am I your trusted person? Why am I your trusted advisor? That's the business we're all in. The product, the service, the offering is secondary to that point. Now, why is impact selling more powerful? Because not only do you ask better questions, but you end up creating much greater results because people want to work with people that really care. And how do they know you care? It's when you ask those types of questions. People can easily see when somebody is only interested in the sale. But when you start asking deeper, more meaningful questions, they know you care. And that helps you separate yourself from other people. It helps you become memorable. Now, that's the impact phase. Now, If you're writing things down, A for attract, E for engage, I for impact. Impact should be in capital letters, circled, underlined, and highlighted. Now, why is that so important? Because impact is your default setting. Remember how I said everything is complicated? Your sales process can get complicated, not because of you in this process, because of your client, your prospect. What if your prospect comes back and says in the middle of the appointment, I'm not ready to do this. I have to check back next week. All of a sudden, all of your momentum is drained and gone. Well, where do you go back to when you start that process up again in a week? It's simple. You go back to the impact phase. You go back to talking about those things that were impactful and emotional for your prospect. See, when you're in the impact phase, the emotional level of your prospect is up here. And when you disengage from them, that emotional level drops. So when you re-engage with them, whether it's in another call, another appointment, another meeting, however it is, you need to work them back up to that same emotional place. You need to get them to where they were in the first meeting. And the way you do that is by defaulting to the impact phase. A lot of the work that we do at the Sales Activist is to teach people how to handle this interaction and how to make sure that they get back to the right place. Have you ever found yourself in a position where you're in one meeting and you're convinced, you would bet the farm that person is going to buy, and at the end of the meeting they don't, but they say, check back with me on Monday. And then you get on the phone with them on Monday and it's almost like they're an entirely different person, right? Like they don't even sound like the same person because that emotional level has dropped. 100 other things have happened, 1,000 other things have happened, and it's no longer the priority that it was when you had them up here. So the impact phase is critical to your success. Now, what's the next part of the sales process to keep it simple? And that's O. That's offer. Your offer. Now, why is that so important in that order? Because when you focus on impact and you ask those types of questions, people will tell you what's most important to them. We train a lot of people on how to ask the right questions to pull out the right impact-focused answer. And the reason why that's critical is if you do that earlier in the process, the way we teach, it's so much easier to tailor your solution to what means the most to your prospect. Your offer should always follow the impact phase. It should never be before. Never. Don't talk about your product, your service you're offering before you talk about the impact that client could have. Don't get into the weeds and every single detail about what you do until you explore impact with your prospect. Your offer is always after your impact. And that's so critical. When I analyze sales processes that are broken, when I talk to individual coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs who are struggling with sales, and I ask them to walk me through a call, or I sit in on a phone call or a Zoom call, and I see what they do. One of the biggest things that they do is they talk too much about their product and all the details before they ever talk about the impact it could have on their prospect. The client isn't going to know and isn't going to care how important it is until it's important to them first. The offer should always follow the impact. And finally, you. The last part of the sales process is you, and the U stands for understanding. Understanding. What that means is at the end of every sales interaction, you need to make sure that there is a clear, defined, and shared understanding as to the next steps. What's going to happen next? Next phone call, next meeting, next decision. The decision may be done. It may be an understanding that they're not going to work with you. That's a shared understanding. You're on the same page. Many times people miss sales opportunities. They miss tremendous opportunities to increase their sales momentum because they don't, and I mean don't, end sales interactions with a clear understanding of next steps. It just kind of hangs out there. And maybe this has happened to some of you, and it's happened to me over time, but it just hangs out there. You don't know what's next. They don't know what's next. It just kind of ends. And that's never going to get you where you want to go. You need to have a clear understanding. So your new, simple, easy to follow sales process, AEIOU. A for attract, E for engage, I for impact, capitalize impact, please. O for understanding, and O for offer, and U for understanding. You want to make sure that you write that sales process down and follow it completely. Now, so many of these moving parts are simple in nature, but where you get massive results, where you get massive return, and where you get massive sales success is by figuring out how all these pieces work together. See, you're mastering the science as well as the art of selling. See, the science is the numbers. The art is how you sell. The science is your client acquisition system. The art is your sales process. And you need to master both of those. But for you to really be successful and generate 6x your sales results, you need to make a conscious decision right now to focus on impact and not just value. And let me tell you why that's so important. Because the people that sell on impact, the elite sales professionals out there, they master a lot of the things that I've already discussed. They master leveraging their network, referrals, warm introductions to other people, strategic alliances, joint ventures. They get a lot of business from other people, and that makes things easier. They're creative. They're willing to put themselves out there. They'll grab their phone and they'll text 100 people asking if they can help. You know what that creates? It creates opportunities. It creates opportunities and engagements. But the most important thing that they do is they sell on impact. They sound different than everybody else. Okay? I will tell you that probably less than 10% of the people that are out there selling professionally ever really accurately sell on impact. Some do it casually, but only about 10% really excel at it. And ironically, they're the top 10% of salespeople that are out there. Now, I don't mean generating just the sale, because there's a difference between generating a sale and actually creating sales momentum, because you can generate sales a lot of ways. You can create automations and it generates a sale for you. I'm talking about an actual sales engagement where you're selling, not a landing page or an order. I'm talking about you actually selling. Only about 10% of people do it. If you want to 6x your sales results, master impact. Don't settle for value. And why is that so important? Because when you're comparing apples to apples and people are looking at how one person interacts with them versus another, if somebody is only selling on value and they're not asking deeper questions, they aren't being perceived as somebody who really cares the same way. They aren't positioning themselves as that trusted advisor. And as a result, they're not remembered by their prospect. But the person who is selling on impact and is asking those deeper questions is creating a better bond with their prospect. They're positioning themselves as that trusted advisor. And why is that so powerful? Because not only will they close more business than the other person, it will be harder for that other person who doesn't sell that way to take business away from them. See, there are 3 distinct different types of sales that everybody needs to know how to master. The first is new acquisition selling, winning new business. The second is retention selling, selling to existing clients. In fact, your easiest client to sell should be that client you've already sold. Selling somebody that has already bought from you should be the easiest type of sale for you to make. But because people sometimes don't build the right relationships, they don't have the opportunity to sell additional things to their prospects or to their clients. And then the final sale that you need to know how to make, and this is important as well if you want to 6x your sales results, is what I call the win-back sale. What happens if you lose a client? Well, if you've done all the right things, maybe you lose them short-term for a reason that was outside of the control. Maybe it was a monetary thing, or maybe it was a decision that was out of their control. But if you've developed that relationship and you sold on impact, you have every likelihood that you'll be able to go back and win that business back. So if you want to 6x your sales results, you need to excel in those areas, and you need to master how to sell new acquisition. You need to master how to sell to existing clients, and you also need to master how to sell to clients that you may have lost. All of these are things that we teach people at the Sales Activist. Most importantly, when it comes to your work with the clients that you work with, make sure along the way that you truly develop a genuine relationship with them. Uncover all their needs, their desires, all the things that mean the most to them. Because when you do that and you put that type of a foot forward, it makes it so easy for them to recognize how genuine you are and how much you're willing and trying to help them. Those are the types of people that people like to work with. I know when I look at somebody who's selling to me, I always want to get a sense of that person's personality and how committed they are to serving us and making sure that we're going to get the right result. That's really, really important to me. And it's important to the average person who's buying. So you need to make sure that you focus on that. And above all else, make sure that you focus on creating massive impact in your sales process, in your sales interactions. Now, one of the things that I want to do, I want to make sure that for everybody that's listening, whether you're catching this live or whether you catch the recording, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to 6x your sales results. And I've dedicated some time on my calendar over the next week. If you'd like to develop your own 6x sales plan and you'd like our help to do that, I want to encourage you to contact us for your own free sales strategy session where we'll talk about how we can help you build a plan to 6x your sales results. And you can do that by simply texting the word sales to the number 409-509-7355. That's texting the word sales to 409-509-7355. You'll connect with my digital assistant. You'll be able to book time in my calendar right through our assistant. They'll be able to help you find a time that works for you. And we'll have a conversation about 6xing sales in your business for 2024. This has been just a great time for me talking about these things. I am so passionate about wanting to see entrepreneurs and people succeed in selling that if I can help you in any way, please let me know. Connect with me, Joe Beck, founder of The Sales Activist. You can find us at thesalesactivist.com. You can connect with us on our digital assistant, or you could reach out to me on any social media channel. It would be my pleasure to talk sales with you and help you achieve the sales success that you'd like in 2024. Let's get together one-on-one. Let's talk about 6xing your sales results in 2024. This is Joe Beck, founder of The Sales Activist. If I can help you in any way, just let me know. You guys have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.